Wasa iati, Erin Tripp, ka Xàalnook you chut duasak, Deishitan ayachat, yeshit dach ayachat. Hi, how are you? My name is Erin Tripp and Xàalnook is my Tlingit name. I am from the Deishitan clan from Raven House, yeshit. Wasa iati. Today we are going to be reading Raven and the Tide Lady, adapted from a traditional native story illustrated by Michaela Goade. A little old lady controlled the tide. She never let the tide go down low. There she is, controlling the tide. Raven was determined to bring back the low tide so foods could be gathered from the beach. Raven saw the tide lady sitting on the tide and began to think. Do you see what Raven is seeing? There's the tide lady. What do you think he's thinking? He went to the beach and walked along the bull kelp. He put his head in the water, trying to get a sea urchin, but he could not reach it. Why couldn't he reach it? I think the water's too high. Then Raven saw Mink. Mink, can you bring me a sea urchin? Asked Raven. Mink dived underwater and surfaced with a beautiful shell, round like a ball, but covered in small spikes. Raven ate the delicate meat of the urchin and drank its juice. Then he went to the tide lady who was sleeping by the fire and said, "Hey, look what I have." The tide lady was not happy to see Raven with the spiny shell. She asked Raven, "When was the tide so low you could get a sea urchin?" With a stick, she chased Raven away. Then the tide lady went back to sleep as the fire crackled and popped at her back. Raven returned and said, "I'm chilled from the juice of the sea urchin. May I sit by the fire?" "No. Chook, get out of here." "Please, I am chilled from the juice of the sea urchin. Please let me sit by the fire." The tide lady was angry. She did not understand how Raven had harvested the sea urchin. "No, Chook, you cannot sit by the fire." She raised her stick again. Raven took the stick away. He began poking the tide lady with the spiny sea urchin shell until she hollered, "Stop now, Raven! Let me go!" Raven said, "Not until you let the tide go. Let it go back down." The tide lady relented. Okay, Raven. I will let the tide down." But Raven held on to the tide lady and hollered, "Where are you, Xàalnook? Xàalnook, go down to check the tide." Xàalnook returned. "Raven, the tide is as low as half a man." Raven called his crew. "What do you see at the shore?" "We see gumboots in the tide pools," they hollered. "Do you see them?" "They're just below the surface." "And now," called Raven, "we can gather seaweed on the rocks." "And now," called Raven, "we can rake the sand for clams and cockles." "And now," called Raven, "we are picking sea urchins at the edge of the surf," the crew hollered. "Ooh, more sea urchins." Raven called to Magpie. "Go down and check the tide." Magpie hollered, "Raven, the entire beach is almost dry. I will drop a line for gray cod." Where's the shoreline? You can see where the water used to be. It went all the way up here, but now it's dry. So Raven let the tide lady go. Raven invited everyone to gather food as Raven strung up 1, 2, 3 gray cod. He instructed the tide lady, "From this day, the tide will come high up to the trees before going back down. The tide will stop in 8 places when it's going down." This would help everyone. They could now predict the tide and know when to gather food. There's people gathering food, and there's Raven. Ooh, I think I see a deer. Mink. Now Raven was tired and hungry. He filled up 1 cod's stomach with seal grease, lay down, and allowed the grease to drip into his mouth to reward his hard work. The tide lady kept her promise and let the tide rise and fall. Today, when the tide is low, we can go down to the beach and gather clams, gumboots, sea urchins, seaweed, and much more. The end. Ganesh Cheesh.